The day I realized that everything I worked for, every sacrifice, every dream I held onto, was betrayed in the cruelest way, that was the day my whole world crumbled. My name is Maya, and this is the story of how pain, trust, and heartbreak tore through my life like a storm. For years, I poured my heart and every dollar I saved into building a tiny house, a symbol of freedom and my own place in the world. It was supposed to be my sanctuary, a fresh start while still being close to family. But then, just like that, it was given away to my sister, the very person I sacrificed everything for. Have you ever felt betrayed by those closest to you? That mix of shock, anger, and disbelief? I know my story isn't unique. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Now, sit back and enjoy this journey with me. Let me take you back to those early days when hope was still alive and the dream had just begun. I still remember the very first time I stepped into our backyard and saw the empty patch of earth that would become my dream. It might have looked like just some neglected space to others, but to me, it was a blank canvas, my chance to carve out something that was truly mine. After years of juggling 2 jobs and living paycheck to paycheck, I finally had saved enough to start building my little sanctuary, my own home within my family's land. My parents, especially my mother, were so encouraging at first. She would say, "It'll be yours forever, Maya, your own little place to call home." Her eyes sparkled with promise, and I believed every word. For 8 long months, I poured everything, my savings, my time, my soul, into that project. I researched every detail, contractors, paint colors, lighting fixtures. Every choice was a reflection of who I am, a symbol of my fight for independence, stability, and respect. I dreamed of waking up in that space, brewing my morning coffee in my own kitchen, finally feeling like I belonged somewhere. But beneath the surface of this hopeful story, cracks were already forming. My sister, Claire, was always the favored one, charming, persuasive, the golden child in my parents' eyes. She barely lifted a finger during the entire process, often brushing aside my excitement, or worse, undermining it with snide remarks during family dinners. One night, after a long day overseeing the builders, I collapsed into a chair in that dusty backyard. My mind raced, not just from exhaustion, but from a gnawing doubt. Was I really building this dream for myself? Or was I just chasing a promise that wasn't meant for me? It was around then that my best friend, Emily, noticed the change in me. "Maya, you got to stand up for what you deserve," she said one evening over coffee. "You're working twice as hard as everyone else. Don't let them take this away from you." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to yell, to scream, but what came out was silence. The battle wasn't just about a house. It was about years of unseen sacrifices, broken promises, and a desperate need to be acknowledged by my own family. I also started feeling isolated. My parents' and Claire's subtle exclusion began to wear me down. Invitations to family dinners became rare, and when they came, the air was thick with tension and unspoken blame. I wasn't just building a house anymore. I was fighting for my place in a family that was slowly turning its back on me. And yet, every nail hammered and every wall painted felt like a piece of my defiance, my refusal to fade away quietly. Then there was Uncle Jack, the only family member who seemed to understand what I was going through. A quiet man with a gentle heart, he secretly slipped words of encouragement, just enough to keep my hope alive. "You're stronger than you know, Maya," he said one day, handing me a warm cup of tea as I stood sprawled out on the floor of the unfinished house. But even with allies like him and friends like Emily, the wound was growing deeper. I began to see the cracks not just in the walls, but in the foundations of my relationship with my family. As the house neared completion, the anticipation was palpable. I wanted to call it home. But deep down, there was a hollow weight sitting in my chest, an unspoken fear that the story was far from over. That fear soon became a reality that would shatter everything I thought I knew about family and loyalty. If the previous chapter was about building a dream, this chapter is about what it cost me, the sacrifices hidden behind every smile, behind every word of encouragement from my family. Growing up, I was the responsible one, the sister who always put Claire first. I was the one fixing her bike when it broke, lending her money when she claimed she was in trouble, and quieting my own wants so hers could be fulfilled. I barely noticed these sacrifices at first. They felt like the price to pay for family harmony. But over the years, that quiet giving became a storm of silent resentments. I remember the summer when I spent my entire paycheck to help Claire buy a used car, only to have my parents say she needed it more. Or the time I gave up my dream of attending art college because the family needed me to work and support them. Those moments, they piled up like bricks in my heart. My parents always spoke of fairness, of love, and of sharing. They promised me that this little house would be a reward for all my hard work, a place to finally call mine. But between those promises, there was an unspoken truth. Claire was the golden child, always favored, always forgiven, even when she pushed boundaries or made mistakes. The more I gave, the more I was expected to give, without recognition, without thanks. It was like invisible chains tying me to a role I didn't choose, yet couldn't escape. One afternoon, my father, with a tone that still haunts me, told me, "You should be proud. This house was built because of you. It's yours to keep." At that moment, I believed him. I held on to that hope like a lifeline. But the cracks had already started showing. Claire's quiet complaining, my mother's glances that lingered on her more warmly than on me. It was obvious I was not the favorite anymore, if I ever had been. The promise of the house felt more like a mirage I chased in a desert that kept shifting beneath my feet. Then came a heartbreaking confession from my Aunt Lisa, my mother's sister, who gently warned me behind closed doors. "Maya, sometimes family isn't who you want them to be." Those words echoed in my mind during many lonely nights when I questioned if all my sacrifices were worth it. Did I build this home to belong? Or was I forever the outsider? Emotions ran wild, hurt, anger, confusion, battling with a fading hope and a stubborn fire inside me that refused to give up. But I had to learn to stand strong before the real storm hit. As the house neared completion, I felt both pride and a growing sense of unease. Was this truly the home for me, or just a symbol of promises that might never be kept? I wasn't ready for the betrayal that was soon to come, one that would shatter everything I had believed in. Next, I'll share with you the day my world turned upside down, the heartbreak that pushed me to my limits, and the beginning of a fight for respect and love that no one could take away. The sun was just beginning to rise on what should have been the most promising morning of my life. The day I was finally going to step into my own home, the dream I had built from the ground up with my own hands and every cent I had saved. I arrived early with coffee and pastries, a smile on my face, eager to celebrate a new chapter. The walls gleamed, the floors were polished, and the scent of fresh paint filled the air like a promise. But then, the look on my father's face shattered everything. His eyes, usually steady and warm, now held something unreadable, something cold. "We need to talk," he said quietly, almost hesitating. My heart skipped a beat. Something was wrong. I forced a light smile, trying to convince myself maybe this was just a small hiccup. Then the words hit me like a freight train. "We've decided. It would be better if Claire lived here instead." I stumbled back, disbelief washing over me like a tidal wave.
"What?"
"She's getting married next year. She needs a place to start."
"You understand, right?"
"You're older. You can find somewhere else." I blinked, waiting for the punchline, expecting him to say it was a joke. But his face remained stone-cold serious, almost apologetic. I was betrayed. Plain and simple. Every brick, every nail, every dollar of my hard-earned savings, $15,000 that was supposed to be my safety net, handed over like a gift to my sister. I was invisible, powerless, like a ghost in my own family. My mother's voice carried the cruelest phrase of all: "Family helps family." Apparently, that only applied when I was the one helping. That morning, my dream died. The air felt thick and heavy, like the walls themselves were closing in on me. Tears stung my eyes, but I swallowed them down, refusing to give my pain away. All of those years of being the responsible one, the understanding one, the one who always sacrificed to keep the peace. Was this my reward? I remember my best friend Emily calling me later that day, her voice breaking as I told her what happened. You have every right to be furious, Maya, but don't let them break you. And break me they tried, with quiet, calculated cruelty. There was Claire, smiling sweetly at family dinners, pretending nothing was wrong. And Uncle Jack, who looked away when I caught his eye, caught between loyalty and empathy. My parents painted a picture where I was the unreasonable one, the troublemaker rocking the boat. Their silence screamed louder than words, cutting deeper than knives. I spiraled into a storm of emotions, bitter anger, sharp pain, unbearable loneliness. But rising beneath it all was a fierce resolve. I would not be invisible anymore. I was done being the shadow in their perfect family portrait. This betrayal was a starting gun, not a full stop. But this storm was only beginning. After that crushing day, when I was told the house I'd built with my own blood, sweat, and tears was being handed over to my sister, I chose silence. Not because I was broken, but because I was strategic. I didn't call. I didn't text back. I didn't show up demanding explanations or apologies. I simply disappeared from their world and retreated into mine. At first, it felt like the hardest thing I'd ever done. Every buzz of my phone made my heart race with hope. Was it a message of reconciliation? But it was never what I wanted to hear. Just desperate pleas, frustrated accusations, and the cruel echo of "we're family. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Mom's texts went from gentle concern to veiled threats. Dad's calls grew more insistent, sometimes even angry. Claire's messages ranged from sweet guilt trips to outright demands. I wanted to scream, to fight back, to explain. But every time, I reminded myself, this time, I wouldn't be the fixer. My silence became my shield and my weapon. I started seeing the true colors of my family more clearly. Their concern wasn't for me. It was for the house, for appearances, for keeping control. They needed me to solve their problems again, but on their terms. And when I stayed silent, the story they told changed. I wasn't the hardworking daughter anymore. I was the unstable one, the problem, the one who abandoned them. Aunt Lisa even called from out of state, asking if I was okay, subtly fishing for information. The family narrative was being rewritten behind my back. I was painted as the villain, the unreasonable daughter who had walked away from her responsibilities. But I knew the truth. I was the one who had been betrayed, the one who had sacrificed so much only to be discarded. My friend Emily was my lifeline during this time, reminding me, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to say no, to set boundaries. And I slowly learned that boundaries weren't walls, they were lifelines. Each day, my resolve grew stronger. I drove by the house one afternoon and saw my sister's car in the driveway, my parents likely inside, planning her move-in, oblivious to what I was planning next. They thought they'd won. But they didn't realize the house was a ticking time bomb, built on corners cut and cheap fixes after I left. I held the knowledge they didn't have, the leverage. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to use it. The silence wasn't stubbornness or breakdown. It was power, control, and self-respect. This was only the beginning of a reckoning that would change everything. The moment I decided to tear down that house was one of the hardest and yet most freeing decisions of my life. That house had been my dream, my fight, my promise to myself. But it had also become a symbol of betrayal, heartbreak, and a future that belonged to someone else. I remember standing on the edge of the driveway, heart pounding like a drum. The quiet suburban street felt unusually still, as if waiting for what was about to come. I called the demolition team in secret. Just a few trusted people knew. I wanted the process to be swift, clean, and final. Watching the first wall fall felt like watching the weight of all those stolen years crumble to dust. I wasn't just destroying wood and nails. I was breaking free from years of invisibility, from the chains of being the responsible one, who no one truly saw. My hands trembled as I guided the workers. Each swing of the wrecking ball echoed with relief and rage. Neighbors peeked out their windows, whispering in confusion and disbelief. Some shook their heads, others gave quiet nods of sympathy. Even Uncle Jack reached out afterward, voice thick with emotion. "Maya, I know this is painful, but maybe it's the start of something new. You're reclaiming your story." That night, sitting amid the rubble and silence, I felt both loss and a strange peace, a closing of a brutal chapter and the opening to my own new beginning. I knew the journey ahead would be tough. Family ties were broken, and healing would take time. But in that moment, the past no longer had the power to define me. I was no longer rooted in their story. I was writing my own. And as the dust settled, so did my resolve to build a future on my terms, from the ashes of betrayal to the heights of self-respect. The dust had barely settled when the aftermath began to ripple through my family. The house was gone, but the aftermath lingered like a shadow. Harsh truths laid bare, wounds that refused to heal, and a family fractured beyond repair. My parents were devastated, not just by the loss of the house, but by the walls I had built around myself. Claire was furious, her dreams cracked and scattered like broken glass. But for me, it was the first time in my life I truly felt free. Free from the invisible chains of obligation. Free from the suffocating role of the good daughter, who sacrificed everything for everyone else. But freedom didn't come without a price. The breakup of our family dynamic was painful, raw. During those first weeks, Uncle Jack became my refuge. His quiet wisdom reminded me that healing was not linear, and sometimes starting over meant letting go. Friends like Emily stood by me as I rebuilt not just a life, but a sense of self-worth. I had to learn to trust again, not just others, but myself. I took time to reflect on the lessons buried deep beneath the pain. That love doesn't mean losing yourself. That family isn't always who carries you, but who lifts you up. That saying no can be an act of fierce love, for yourself and for those you truly care about. The journey was long and often lonely, but with every step, I reclaimed parts of myself I thought were lost. I found joy in small victories, a new job opportunity, a morning without tears, a friendship blossoming anew. And slowly, I started to envision a future not built on sacrifice or betrayal, but on respect, honesty, and hope. My story isn't just about loss. It's about the courage to choose yourself when the world asks you to fade away. It's about rebuilding from the ashes, stronger, wiser, and unapologetically you. And if there's one thing I want you to take from this, no matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how dark the night, there is always a dawn waiting for you. The question is, will you dare to walk towards it? Thank you for walking this journey with me. If my story resonates, share where you're watching from in the comments. And remember, your story matters, no matter what anyone else says.